Welcome. In this training video, I'm going to show you something in Microsoft Excel regarding pivot tables. Now, many users out there absolutely love the way pivot tables can analyze your data very quickly and very effectively. So one of the things I'm going to show you is a feature that is very little known working with pivot tables. So you can see here that I have a table here, and when you get a large file such as this and you want to see where it ends, don't use the scroll bar. That would take too long. Now, some people will use the keyboard shortcut, which is fine, but what most people don't know is the ability to use the mouse to very quickly find and go to the very last row. You'll see my mouse is right on the border of the cell, and I'm going to see that it changes to a four-sided arrow, and when it does, I just double click, and it took me right down to row 2021, just like that. Now, there cannot be any blank rows in between this list. If there are, it would stop and skip until it gets to the bottom. But every single row here is adjacent to each other. That's why it very quickly jumped to the bottom. So this border is representative of the entire list, meaning it has a left side, a right side, a top, and a bottom. So if I bring my mouse on the left-hand side and double click, it's going to jump me from this column over to the very first column. Here we go. All right, and there we go. Okay, now let's get back to pivot tables. So how do I create a pivot table from this list? It's very easy. Number one, our border has to be somewhere inside of the table with no multiple cells selected, just the one. Can't be over here, have to be inside here somewhere. We go to our Insert tab and we click Pivot Table. I have never changed anything here. I just keep the table and the range, which has already been defined for me. And I always put it into a brand new worksheet. And I click OK. So I have a blank pivot table report waiting for me to drop the fields into the different quadrants. So I don't have to have a filter, but I'm going to choose one, and I'm going to make it company name. So I just click and drag. And now all of a sudden up here on row 1, A1 and B1, you will see company name with a drop-down list. Now I'm going to take the region and drag that into columns. You can see there are 5 regions, A through E. Then I'm going to take the products and drag it into the rows quadrant. And you can see that there are 9 products. Last but not least, what's missing is the actual data, which is obviously going to be coming from any one of these numeric fields: quantity, price, total sales. I'll choose quantity. So I drag the quantity field and I drag it onto the values quadrant, and voila, I've got my pivot table report. Pretty cool, huh? Now here's where I mentioned of a feature that is very little known that I believe you're going to appreciate. So for example, suppose you would like to, out of these company names, let me choose 3 of them. I'll choose the first 3, keep it real simple. And watch, before I click OK, you're going to see what the numbers are. The grand total is 30,390. When I click OK, it's going to get a lot smaller because I'm only choosing these 3 companies. And it dropped down to 968. And you may be aware that there is a feature called the slicers in pivot tables. Okay, and there's a couple places where you can actually use the slicers button. One of them is on the Pivot Table Analyze tab, which is right here, and the other is on the Insert tab. You got the slicer button here. Doesn't matter. So what I'll choose is the slicer button. Actually, I will choose it from the Pivot Table Analyze, although it doesn't make a difference. And now what I'm doing is I'm choosing what slicers or what fields do I want to have show as slicer boxes. In other words, slice and dice the data. And I can visually see it, because before I have slicers, up here it says multiple items. And I'd have to keep clicking on this drop-down arrow to see which company names are being referred to. And I don't want to do that. Hence, the beauty of using slicers. So I'll turn on company name, and I'll just turn on one more. I'll use the region. Click OK, and I've got my slicers. Now, here's where you can see that I have these three companies because they're highlighted in blue. Here's what I'm getting at. This is all fine and good. I can see the numbers for these three. But what if you want a separate worksheet for each one of these three? How would you do it? Well, that's what I'm going to show you. To do it, number one, we have to be inside the table report here. We go over to the Pivot Table Analyze tab, and way on the left-hand side, next to the Options button, is a small drop-down arrow where it says click here for more pivot table options. So I do that, and the command says show report filter pages ... Anytime you have a ... showing up after a command, that means a dialog box is going to come up for further instructions. So I click on that, and it says company name because that's what I'm filtered on. And when I click OK, because I'm showing three, I am going to have three new sheets added right in front of where this pivot table report is. Here we go, drum roll. Is that cool? Or is that cool? And it broke it down so that each value or total is represented on each sheet, each data for these three company names. All right. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I got a lot more pivot table tricks and tips for you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.